Natasha and thank you so much for joining me today. Well, today we are going to make something different than I've made before, and that is we are going to create an envelope card. Now this is kind of exactly what it is. It's an envelope and a card all in one. Now I am going to warn you that I'm going to make this a little more difficult than it need be. If you have a larger piece of paper, for example, a 12 by 12 sheet, then start with that. I probably should have done that, but I wanted to use up this paper pad. I have loved this paper pad and I'm still working my way through it, and I'm enjoying using it, most importantly. And so I was determined that I had a few things in here I wanted to use. Now that big, beautiful pink butterfly, I am keeping that for something else. I have another idea in mind for that. Now, and then I just picked out a couple of other pieces that I thought could go together. So if you have one long piece, you'll be able to just cut a long strip and do that. But for me, as I said, I'm going to piece some things together. Now, not too much more difficult, obviously, than usual, but we are going to create a 5.5 strip across. So that's why I cut off that little bit there. And then here I am just going to, the measurements are neither here nor there. You can make the card as wide as you want to and also as long as you want to. So I'm sort of aiming to create a regular sized card, which for me is 4.25 by 5.5 inches, and so that's why I went 5.5 across, and I'm aiming for there to be 4.25. So overall, when this folds up, that will be the size of it. Then at the top, I just picked, an amount that I thought was going to create a nice flap when I folded it over. So I think it was just shy, about 2.5-ish inches. And I'm going to fold that over because I have a die that I really want to use on the top here. And then I just measured 4.25 inches from there, and I'm going to score, and that bottom flap will fold up. Now for me, I'm actually going to cut this flap a little bit shorter in just a moment because I just need a little bit to attach, and you'll see how the saga goes from there. Now again, I'm doing the same, so I cut this 5.5 inches wide. This is going to be the 4.25 panel, and then I just do an extra little piece off the edge there so that I can fold this over, and that will again attach to be the flap. As I said, if you have a 12 by 12 piece, then by all means go ahead and use that. And I might even redo this one. I was just really making good use of what I had, which is important. It is important to use up the things that we have. But I also have 12 by 12 sheets that would have worked perfectly fine. So basically I'm just cutting this off so there's just a little flap down the bottom, and then there's going to be a little flap that I can use to attach it. You'll see in just a second. And then I'm going to decorate the front of this part with some of the cardstock from that Simple Vintage Spring Garden series by Simple Stories. It is a beautiful paper pad. I have used this more than 10 videos worth on my channel. I absolutely love it. Now here is the die from Papertrey ink that I have been wanting to use. When I wanted to create this video, I knew that was the die I wanted to use for this. This is the Elegant Edges Flourish die, and it's actually two separate dies. At the moment I have it together, and the previous 2 times I've used it, I've kept it together too. But in a minute, we are going to cut this separate because you'll see my dilemma. But that's okay, we'll deal with it in just a moment. I am going to put this pretty much on the edge here, not waste too much. And just to hold this down as it goes through the die cutting machine, I'm going to use some low tack tape. This is the mint tape, which I absolutely love. Tack that in a couple of places. Make sure it is wide open as it goes through my die cutting machine. Now, of course, this is not 5.5 inches wide, so I'm just going to finish off these little cuts by doing an angular little slice in to meet it. That's okay with me. I have got some good ideas coming up with this one too, so I'm excited to use it then. But because of the beautiful detail that this cuts, it does make the flap up the top a little bit too delicate for what I need it for. So I'm going to have to come up with a little plan later on, but I've already got a little something in mind. Now this is where I'm going to attach this piece here. I wanted the bottom. So the idea of this is that it is an envelope, but it is a card. So you write on the inside of the envelope. I often like these if I'm going to attach a little gift card or something as well, something flat to go in the center. But it's also just a really nice way that you can send it, and it's sort of, decorative and beautiful, and it becomes the card when you open it up as well. Now, the other thing, if you are actually going to send this through the mail, then of course you'll need to make sure that the closure is good and strong. And you'll also need a little space. For me, I would just die cut out a beautiful white, or even just, cut with a trimmer, a space where you are able to write the address and all of those things on it. And because I've chosen a busy pattern, it would need to be something where, the post office can clearly read it and the machines can pick it up and all those good things, depending on the country that you are in, of course, because lots of different countries have lots of different regulations around their postal service. Now, this is where I'm going to come up with a plan. I have these acetate sheets. Now, these say work well with metal dies, and that is specifically why I use these Hero Arts ones. And this is actually the only acetate that I use. That way I only have to have one packet in my stash, and more often than not, I am die cutting these, so I love the ability that I'm not, for some reason, some acetate just doesn't cut well at all. And so, yeah, I like this one, and I have die cut this, and you can see obviously it doesn't meet the edges again. I'm going to line this up and put it on the underside so that this is going to help create a little bit, that top fit needs to be a little bit stronger. So this is definitely going to help me out there. So I'm going to add in a little bit of glue. Now, what one great thing is because there is a sort of a busy pattern on the other side here, this glue is actually not going to be visible at all, which is absolutely fantastic because I'll pop it onto the acetate. I was trying to hold it in place, but actually it lines up beautifully, so I can let it go. I just put little dabs. I didn't want any squeezing out and, making a mess, so I was relatively careful, but this is going to line up, obviously, because we've used the same dye, beautifully, and I didn't use the decorative portion, only the bottom edge, so that way there is like a solid base of acetate behind this now. So you can see it looks really good. I'm pressing all of that glue nice and hard so it's very secure, and then I do still need to trim away the edges, just that extra little piece, and again I will just follow the line of the cardstock. So that solved that problem, and it still has that beautiful decorative element. Everything is still all nice and see-through, so that is perfect. Now, when it comes to decorating the inside of the card, the world is completely your oyster. I like to add a little bit of light decoration, and that way either I can choose to write over top of it, or I can, not have as much space to fill up, or, gives me options for when the time comes. This is the Sweetly Scented Cling rubber stamps from Penny Black. This one is gorgeous. Now I'm going to take some Pinecone VersaFine clear ink, so a pigment ink that is going to stamp beautifully, and I wasn't sure at this point how dark I wanted this little image to be, so I'm going to test it on a piece of scrap paper. This is going to be the full. Now I didn't ink it up perfectly. It's just trying to get an idea of where we're at, and so do I want the full or do I want the second generation, the stamped off image? And I think for this one, just because of the floral in the top above it, I think I want the stamped off one. So I'm going to ink this up nicely, and then I am going to stamp it off, just making sure I get a relatively even stamp, then stamp down, and I actually just missed a wee spot, so I pressed down. That's the joy of using a stamping platform, and that was pretty good results. Then I have fallen in love with these. These are the Postage stamp washi tape roll from 49 and Market, and I have a few videos using these. It's coming out soon, and I just wanted to add a little Postage stamp or sticker up the top there, and if the one that I have is partway through a roll, I just cut it off and then put the rest back on, and I will use them the next time. And then on the outside, I decided to carry on that gorgeous little image. I'm using my stamping platform just to make sure that I get a good image, and you will see that I managed to muck up, which is not unusual actually. And so when I'm stamping here, I press the edge too hard, and look, I got some extra little ink, but I just added some little leaves. I just inked up that individual leaf and put it over top, and I feel like no one will know. Now this is where I'm going to just use my craft knife. This is my magic mat, which is what I die cut on. The other side you saw it looks terrible, and I keep one side a little bit nicer. I'm using the metal edge of my ruler, and then I'm just going to cut a little slit. I know there are fancy dies out there that do this, but my craft knife does a pretty good job too, so I'm okay there. I'm just going to put a pencil mark where I want it to go so that I get it in the right place. Open this right up and then just use a craft knife to cut a little slot there where the top of my envelope will close. Now, not on purpose, but this card kind of did go down a very floral sort of route, but there are lots of different versions of this card that you can create. This could be made for young children with little gorgeous cars and different ways to close the envelope. You could have it behind an image, so it sort of the top tucks behind the image. Lots of different ways that you can create this, and this is all coming together pretty well, although that strip at the back is annoying me. And so I could have put it on the inside, but I wanted the continuity of the inside because of the images. So actually I had that, remember that little strip that I cut off here earlier on? I am going to glue this onto the little joining piece, and you are barely going to notice. So I have a little strip that I cut off earlier, and now I will put this back on. It's not in exactly the same place, but honestly, unless you're looking for it, it looks just fine. And then I will trim off the excess. But this was a fun little project to create. And then at this point, you could definitely stop at any point here, and this would be fabulous, good to go. But it's in the little details, and I love adding in lots of little details. So I have the mini Postmarks set by Woodware, and I'm going to just do a little bit of second generation stamping with this one. Now I actually don't kind of want this to be seen. I'm going to stamp this in the same Pinecone ink, so the same brown ink, but as I said, a second generation, so that means I stamp it off once and I use the residual ink just to stamp underneath. And actually that means you can't see it when the envelope is closed, so it's not going to confuse any post office or anything crazy like that. But I think it is pretty cute that you can just sort of adds to that feeling of the envelope. I go around with a very light touch of brown ink just around all those folds, all those extra little pieces, and that sort of just goes with the feeling of this card that we seem to have gone for. And as I said, it was kind of on accident. I had no real direction, but boy did I have a lot of fun creating this card. And I've got a few more ideas for this layout in the future as well. So let me know in the comment section down below if you'd like to see sort of different versions of the same card technique, but yeah, different versions. Other than that, I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so much if you've made it this far through the video, and let me know if you've got any questions for me down in the comment section. I'm able to answer them down there, and other than that, I will see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.